to add, I've worked on a number of these matters in the IDAC, and I must say, looking at the history of this case, where the authorization was done in December of 2024, and the arrest is done in June, say 6 to 7 months. This is one of, I've never seen a case be done so quick, where in December authorization and in June, this was done so hastily. If investigations were completed and it was ready, I would have said, well, the investigators did a very good job in this. But they rushed it to court, and clearly it was not ready. I don't know why.
Is your point that there may have been something to the urgency, because normally you wouldn't be able to investigate a complex matter that quickly?
In 6 months,
it's also very clear from the docket that the investigations weren't complete.
In 6 months, it's impossible. I didn't know or suspect anything at the time, but things did not look right. But knowing what I know now, what I've heard in the commission, it clearly shows that there were other things happening in the background which really led to all of this. I wish I could, at the time, have the ability to see into the future. Then I would not have involved myself in this. Maybe I would have quit it more. Maybe I would have acted further. But unfortunately enough, just a normal human being who don't have those powers. Only seeing things now as they're coming out here.
Maybe another statistic, and to ask you to comment really, is that you may not be aware of, if you are not, is that the investigation in terms of 28-1 was authorized, I think, the 28th or the 30th of May in 2025, and the arrests were in June already. How does that compare with your experience from investigation to now we go to court in terms of timeline?
Thanks, Commissioner Khumalo. Yes, I think I was listening on the news. I've heard that. That can only mean one thing, that as at May, when the 28 was authorized, the investigations were so advanced to a point that one could say it's actually ready for court. That is why when they authorized the investigation in May, then the next month, the arrest follows. I don't know if between the date of the authorization in May and 27 June, if there's any investigations that were done and how many statements were obtained in between that period. I doubt if there's any. It appears the moment they authorized the investigation, for them the case was ready for court. It was just an issue of drafting affidavits for warrant of arrest and doing the consultation between the DPP and the IDAC and to get the matter to court.
Thank you.
Advocate Serunye, you can then move on to paragraph 50. I think you've dealt with the first part of it. What you hadn't dealt with is your request that an HR expert assess all the applications.
Yes. Thanks, Council. I'm at paragraph 50. Now, with all these questions that I'm having, in being new into the matter, I wanted investigations to be covered. And my affidavit reads, as regards the qualifications relied upon, SARPA confirmed only Ms. Mukwele's matric, diploma, and engineering degree. Her project management certificate and her MBA were not verified at the time. Verification was only obtained belatedly after the arrest and after my repeated prompting. In addition, no HR expert had been engaged to assess the full body of some 76 applications, so as to determine whether the disqualification of other candidates and Ms. Mukwele's progression to the shortlist and appointment had been proper. Determination of that nature could not be made without such expertise. I raised this in one of the queries that please take all the 76 applications that you received, appoint an HR expert. You are not HR experts. You cannot say this one was favored over this one. This one received more scores compared to, you don't know how the scores were done, why a particular candidate would have been given, especially now the last 3 candidates. Only an expert, HR expert in that field can be able to do that investigation for you and compile a proper report. And from there on, we know we have, if the HR picks up, if the expert picks up mistakes or favoritism, he would say so. But you as investigators do not have capability to say this one was favored over that one. You don't know why they scored 68, 69%, and Van Vuuren got 48%.
Advocate Serunye, I think you've dealt with this earlier, but just maybe clarify which qualifications were verified before and which ones were verified belatedly, as you say in paragraph 50.
Yes, thanks, Commissioner. The affidavit we got from SACPA confirmed the matric and the diploma and the, I think it's an engineering degree. Yes. And these two that I had questioned about, these certificates that I questioned about, the project management and the MBA were verified.
They were also verified, but after you became...
After I had asked those questions, yes. On that email of mine, I'm saying, please verify, because I can see that in her CV or application, she's raising the issue of an MBA and a project management. MBA, one of those, like we dealt with it earlier, she clearly states, I'm still in the process of finalizing this. I think it was only finalized a month after her application was in April, and it was finalized in May. But on her CV, she stated.
And the importance of that is that would have been before the interviews, even before the appointment.
That's true.
She would have had the MBA before the October appointment.
That is correct, Commissioner, yes. When she said for interviews already, the MBA was completed.
She had already obtained MBA when she said for interviews and when she was appointed.
That is correct, yes, Commissioner, yes.
And Advocate Serunye, was an HR expert ever appointed or engaged, as you suggested, to your knowledge? It
was not done, Council. The appointment or these efforts to appoint an HR were not followed up, were not made. I'm not sure now as the matter stands now, because I'm no longer part of it, but this was not done.
Now,
ordinarily, would you prepare a charge sheet which contains a charge on such an issue, this HR aspect, let's say, even before you consult with an HR expert?
I would not, Commissioner Baloyi, because what I'm going to allege in that charge sheet would be information that is not verified. So at least if I have an affidavit and a report of an expert, and I consult with them, and I'm satisfied that the expert gives me more information, then I can allege those issues on the charge sheet. But before that, I can't. Otherwise, I'm just speculating, and information comes afterwards. I don't know, there was nothing wrong with what you are alleging, like it happened with some of these things.
Thank you.
It's like if I were to give an example about, say, in a murder case where allegations are that the deceased was shot with a fire, or the deceased was shot with a firearm, people find the body lying there, and they assume the person has been killed by being shot with a firearm. But still, the post-mortem has to be done. Experts have to check, is this wound consistent with an injury that can be caused by a bullet, and then make the report and say, this injury is consistent with a bullet wound. And only then can I, as a prosecutor, with certainty say, this body, the person was killed with a firearm. But otherwise, I can make a mistake. We can assume that the injury was caused by a firearm, only to find that it was a stab wound, or a person fell on top of a rock, and so on. So these experts are important in that sense.
Advocate Serunye, at paragraph 51, you deal with your response. I just wanted to note on the 17th of August, you responded twice. The first response is at page 29, PS4 at the top. You'll see there that was your first response.
Indeed, Commissioners.
Would you like to put that on record?
That response was after receiving the response to my first trial note, who was asking questions. After receiving the blue note, you see, I'm sort of frustrated by that, and I'm saying to the two juniors, Advocate Tlajwayo and Advocate Seremsemi, that I'm asking questions. Instead of providing me with answers, I'm provided with the citation of PRECA. I know what section 1, 2, 3, and 24 of PRECA say. I do not want to sound critical, but reference to Section 24 is misguided and misunderstood. Section 24 would be relevant if the generals were the ones that had received gratification from mukwele who are seeking to obtain employment from the public body. The law must be applied to the facts. What I want to know are the facts. It does not help to hide around the fact that the awarding of the position opposed to mukwele was a gratification. The fundamental question is why are we saying it was a gratification? In brackets, in the context of the case, that is on the facts before us. Why are we saying it's a gratification? It doesn't help me to cite what Section 1 of PRECA says, that the gratification includes employment. I know that. Why are you saying, in this case, this appointment of Ms. Mukwele is a gratification? They don't provide me with the evidence.
And this response was just to the 2 junior prosecutors.
Yes.
You then do a second response, which is at page 52. And that response is then to the whole team.
Yeah.
I don't propose that we go through the entire response. A summary of it is at page 50, at paragraph 51. So then we can take it from there.
Before you do that, did you get a response from your junior prosecutors to the email at page 29, Ms. Ramsame and Ms. Tlhatshwayo?
I did not get any response, Commissioner Mallory.
Thank you.
Yes. Counsel, on page 52, after sending the email to Advocate Tlhatshwayo and Advocate Ramsame, I then responded to the email, the blue explanation. You'll see the first person that I'm sending a message to is the one that I would have received the email from, being Chief Perumal, and the rest of the investigators, but again to the prosecutors. In brief, saying to them, my email and inputs received.
Advocate Serunye, my proposal was for us to look at your summary that you've done in the statement.
Okay.
So at
It's
paragraph
on
51.
Paragraph
Page
51,
15.
Okay, yes.
You'll see in short.
Correct. In a nutshell, that email I'm repeating here by page 51 of my affidavit, rather paragraph 51 of my affidavit, where I'm saying, in my reply of 17 August 2025, I set out my analysis of Section 4 of PRECA. In short, Section 4, subsection 1, paragraph A contemplates a public officer who accepts gratification from another person, and Section 4, 1B contemplates a person who gives gratification to a public officer. On the state's own allegation, the position was the other way around. It was alleged that the generals, in brackets, who were public officers, gave the gratification in the form of employment to the civilian, Ms. Mukwele, without it being shown that what Ms. Mukwele was thereby to do. That allegation does not fit the wording of Section 4. I further explained that the presumption in Section 24 did not assist on the available facts, since it would have been available only had Ms. Mukwele been the giver of the gratification to the generals. I concluded that the corruption charge, as it stood, was defective and did not comply with the definitional elements of PRECA, and was liable to be challenged in terms of Section 85 of the Criminal Procedure Act. I remained of the view that if corruption were indeed present, its existence depended upon establishing a motive or quid pro quo through further investigation. The bank statements, cell phone records, and computer data of those concerned, and any family or other relationship between them, and that, absent such a motive, a charge of corruption could not properly be sustained. This work had not been done before the arrests were effected. Taken together, the questions I raised remain unanswered on the material in the docket. The significance of this is twofold. First, it demonstrated that the arrest had been premature. As I put it in my correspondence at the time, the matter had been rushed to court when it was not ready. Second, and more fundamentally, the nature of the unanswered questions demonstrated that the preliminary investigation had not been properly conducted. Alternatively, that there was no case. These were not peripheral queries. They went to whether the essential elements of the offense charged could be established at all. I also raised the question as to the basis upon which the matter fell within IDAC's mandate. I record for completeness that I considered a matter of this seriousness involving senior officers in the intelligence environment to be one that could be appropriately be handled within the IDAC space, whatever difficulties attended. the matter in which it had in fact been investigated and prosecuted.
I want you to go to PS 11 on page 102.
I'm there, Commissioner.
Are you there, Advocate Serunye?
Yes.
It's an email that you sent to your colleagues on the 26th of August, 2025. Do you see that?
I see that, Commissioner.
And the very first question you ask after the greetings, but this relates only to the Lushaba matter, as I see, it doesn't relate to both of them. But you ask the main questions, colleagues, does this case fall under the mandate of IDAC?
Indeed, Commissioner.
So this is maybe 2 weeks after you came into possession of the dockets. You were already concerned about IDAC's mandate.
Indeed, Commissioner.
Now, going back to the mukwele/Khumalo matter, once you discount the corruption, which you say, as far as you're concerned, based on your understanding of Breka,
yeah,
it just wasn't there. So if you remove corruption and you leave whatever that remains, would that fall within the mandate of IDAC?
But definitely not, Commissioner Khumalo, because if I discount the corruption, then let's say what I'm left with is fraud, and that will be the fraud against the civilian.
Yeah.
Because in that case, then the generals would have been my witnesses, that is the persons to whom the representations were made. And it's clearly a lower court matter, a regional court, maybe district court even. It
And
clearly
you
did not belong.
can't have it both ways. You can't say they colluded and then they were defrauded.
Yes. If I'm ending up with a fraud, they are victims. They've been defrauded as well. They've been representations made to them.
Yeah.
Then I cannot charge them with her. But if the investigations which I wanted them to do, where I'm asking questions, on your theory, if there's corruption, then there's collusion. If things did not happen this way and happen that way, if the national instructions were breached, then we're talking collusion. If I were to say, yeah, but these high-ranking officials in the intelligence unit, could they not pick up, if there was fraud, could they not pick up this fraud? And if I come to the conclusion that they closed their eyes to it, then that means they colluded with her. That is why then the collusion. But that would have been if the evidence points to that. But on your initial question, if I ended up only with fraud, then clearly it doesn't belong in the IDAC space. It was not, even the magistrate questioned it on the first appearance. He said, this is not that kind of fraud or corruption that I deal with on a daily basis.
And you would have had to send it to an HR person, as you say. An HR person would have had to assess whether, is this a misrepresentation or is it a simple case of people interpreting a provision differently? The reason why I'm asking you this, maybe we should deal with it now so that we don't come back to it. If you go to file 2, on page 179, I know you had it next to you.
Yes, I did. On page
179.
179. I'm there, Commissioner.
The first bullet that you see on page 179 says, must have a minimum period of 3 years appropriate managerial experience, and this is the important part, in the field of the post. So not just any managerial experience in the field of the post. And then when you go to page 60 of your statement, your annexures on page 60.
Is that paragraph 60?
Paragraph 17.
17.
60, page 60.
Okay.
It is PS 6.
Yes, I'm going there.
And then paragraph 17.
I'm looking at 17,
Yes.
Commissioner.
So the definition of appropriate managerial experience, it comes from clause 2 of the National Instruction 11 of 2017.
Sure.
And it defines that as experience at a level higher than the supervisor. That's all it says. It doesn't say you must have been a manager at your job. Because if you were a manager at your job, then you would have to say, at my employment, I was a manager. So if you go back to 178, if an advocate had applied for this position, for example, and it was an advocate who's been practicing for 20 years at the bar, the education qualification would be their LLB. And then when it comes to this requirement, he would have to tell you, because there are no managers at the bar, I can tell you that. But I would have to then explain to you why my experience is an appropriate experience at a level that justifies appointment. And I assume it's the same if somebody was a prosecutor for 25 years. They may not have been managers at NPA, but because they meet the educational requirements, now what you want to know is, do you have the appropriate managerial experience for the role? Not that you must be a manager at your job.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if you have file 3 with you.
I have it.
On page 908.
I'm on that page.
If you start on 907, what you have is the job description of Ms. Mukwele at BMW.
That is correct.
On 907.
That is correct.
And then it describes the role, maintenance and fastening planner. And then there's the job description, job valuation, PZP3. If you go to 908,
I'm on page 10.
there is then the description of the role. And halfway down the page, you will see that role of the described function, please check where appropriate. Do you see that?
I see that.
And then there's a tick, she's an employee, and then project management and functional leadership. So that is since 2007, that is the role.
Yes.
And then if you go to the next page, 909, it sets out the key responsibilities of this person. It's a lot of them,
Yes.
it's about 16. Now, all of them are leadership in nature because they're about directing, they're about leading, they're about controlling, they're about being responsible, they're about being responsible, they're about being responsible. Do you see all of those?
I see that.
So they are not about, no, somebody will tell you what to do and you will do it. This function requires that she be responsible for all those things.
Yes.
So it was her responsibility to make sure that the people below her, whether they report directly to her or indirectly, make sure that those things happen.
Indeed.
And then one has to interpret whether that qualifies as appropriate management experience. And as you say, an HR person should have done this. But what IDAC people did was they went and obtained a 4 July 2025 affidavit from Mr. Simon at BMW. But the question they asked is the wrong question because their question was, is Ms. Mukwele a manager at BMW? But that's not what the role requires.
Yes.
As you quoted the instruction on page 60 of your, it's appropriate experience at a level above the supervisor.
Yes.
That's all you are required to show.
True.
But those are HR matters that somebody who's steeped in HR is better placed to deal with, including, for example, the public service, the PSC, the Public Service Commission. It's not for IDAC investigators to say, you are a manager or you are not a manager.
I fully concur with you, Commissioner Khumalo. That is why I said to them, get an HR expert and take all the 76 applications. Look at them. It's not up to us to say this one qualified, this one not. Yes, there are those that, on the face of it, when you look at the application, the person would have been disqualified because they don't have the necessary qualification or the application was received late. Those
And
are
then
straightforward.
it becomes a matter of interpretation if you go back to 909, whether somebody who has done that for, let's say, from 2017 to 2024, that's about 7 years,
Yes.
more or less, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can say, does that then qualify as appropriate managerial experience as defined in the national instruction? So that's how one should deal with it.
I concur, Commissioner.
And quite rightly, you said we are not qualified to do this. Get an HR person to analyze these things and give us an answer. And you say that was not done.
It was not done, Commissioner. It was not done.
Thank you.
And I agree with what you're saying, Commissioner, that looking at the functions, the question of interpretation, some of these responsible for valuation of statistical data, and these are not
Chair,
functions that you can give.
Chair has just directed me on 909.
909. Yes.
One of those bullet points, I think it's number 5. It says leads special projects and technical related project teams.
Yes,
That's a leadership role.
it is. Indeed, it is, Commissioner.
Advocate Balo is referring me to another one, so it's the same one. No, it says from all departments and levels, including management. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that, Commissioner. In fact, the majority of them, Commissioner, if you look at the being responsible to initiate and follow up on corrective actions, time and cost-wise. Most of these are management-related.
So
And
most of the functions she was performing at BMW for a period of 7 years are of a management nature, although she did not occupy the official title or official position of manager.
I agree.
Because when you direct, control, and oversee, whatever your role is, you are managing. You are responsible for projects, you are responsible for people, you are responsible for ensuring that things get done.
Indeed, Commissioner.
So the question asked of the BMW person was a wrong question because what he was asked was she a manager at BMW?
Yeah.
But that's not what the advert requires, and that's not what the national instruction requires.
Indeed, Commissioner. And I think maybe to add on what Commissioner is saying, they also underplay this role where, and I think it's common cause between her and Mr. Seyman, that she was having about 15 people that she was supervising or at least teaching. It cannot be, that task cannot be given to the most junior of your officers.
Yeah.
Or even if you do, but that comes with a lot of responsibility, that you trust the person and they're imparting knowledge and skill. It's also a management function.
The mistake they made was not to show Mr. Simon the national instruction and to say to Mr. Simon, please tell us what Ms. Mukwele was doing at BMW. Is it experience at a level higher than the supervisor? And what were those functions? What they went there to ask was she in senior management for 7 years? That's a wrong question.
True.
And to then go to court and say she must be arrested for fraud because she doesn't have 7 years senior management experience. Before we even get to the charge sheet, just asking the court to authorize arrests on those facts, that is problematic.
I concur, Commissioner Khumalo. These are things that it goes back to my earlier position that the investigation was rushed, or at least the arrest was rushed. These are issues that ought to have been dealt with and determined before arresting.
And to your credit, once you saw the docket, you asked these questions.
I did, Commissioner, because a lot didn't make sense, really, and I was worried that people have already been arrested, and not just not that any person has to be arrested, but the most senior people in the police, and at a very sensitive unit for that matter.
Mr. Serunye, you may